Hey, I'm Stephanie, and it's time to investigate the question, can someone do pillow talk better than Charlotte Tilbury? Because I have two very similar eyeshadow palettes here. Charlotte's iconic Pillow Talk quad, but also the Nude Sculptural palette from Lancome. We're going to take a really close look at both of these today, and only one of them is going to remain in my collection. I, of course, already know which one because I have been testing these in head-to-head comparison for weeks. The question is, can you tell which one will stay? There's always timestamps if you want to cheat, but what fun is that? I hope you'll guess in the comments. This is all part of my Panning for Gold series, which I'm using as a method of curating my cosmetics collection. My ultimate goal is to declutter anything that isn't a gold nugget product, even if it's really good. I'd rather give those second best things away because they're still excellent, and I only have one face. I can only wear so much makeup at a time, and I want to make sure all these beautiful things get the love they deserve. As I mentioned at the start, these palettes are really similar. You'll see just how similar in the swatches and application footage. But although they're very close, they're not identical. So let's do some comparisons to see exactly how they're related and in which situation one might be better. But first, what is pillow talk anyway? The official definition, which I have over here, is confidences exchanged in intimate circumstances, so conversations in bed. But when it comes to Charlotte Tilbury, pillow talk just means pink. But Charlotte, darling, knows her marketing well enough to know that it's very smart to make it sound more scandalous than that.
All right, marketing team, are we ready for our newest challenge? Charlotte has just contrived the most revolutionary new lipstick color. It's going to change the entire industry. And we need to find a name that can capture its essence, its utter sensuality. Would you like to see it? It's pink. Precisely. An extraordinary pink. So how do we say pink without saying pink?
Salmon?
You think salmon captures sensuality?
No. How about blushing beauty?
Not bad, but I think it's been done before. How about flush of love? What's so funny?
No, I know what you mean, but for some reason my brain went right from flush of love to courtesy flush.
Ooh, let's not do that then.
6 hours later.
We must think sassy, sexy. I don't know. How about orgasm?
NARS?
Oh, that's right. I need to go to bed. Somebody bring me a pillow.
That's it!
What?
Pillow talk!
And that, my children, is the story of how Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk line came to be. If you're good tomorrow night, maybe I'll read you the story about how her lipsticks took over the world. I honestly don't know what to say about what you just saw. But basically, in the Charlotte Tilbury universe, Pillow Talk equals pink. So everything in the Pillow Talk line is either pink or pink adjacent, including the eyeshadow quad. And supposedly, it's all the perfect shade of pink for everyone. With all the different skin tones out there in the world, I'm not sure how true that can really be, but for the purposes of this video, let's just assume that Charlotte was aiming to create the most universal pink possible. The logical conclusion would then be that the Pillow Talk quad is the most universal pink eyeshadow palette there is, making it the best? Or does someone do it better? Let's start with the comparisons. The first and maybe most obvious difference is that Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk is a quad, while Lancome's Nude Sculptural palette is a quint. The suggested retail price of Pillow Talk is $55 for 5.2 grams versus $60 for 4 grams in the Lancome quint. So even though you're getting fewer colors from Charlotte, you're actually getting more product in the quad. So not only are you paying less for the palette, but you're also paying less per gram. The question is, are we the types of makeup wearers who completely pan our eyeshadows? Because quite frankly, I am not. I love to palette hop and try to spread my love of eyeshadow across all my palettes, which means I have yet to hit pan in a single one. So for me, the value is in having more options, which means the Lancome Quint actually has the better price ratio, because I'm less concerned with price per gram and more concerned with price per shadow. So in the value for money battle, for my priorities anyway, the Lancome Quint actually wins. Now let's talk color. Both of these palettes have 3 nearly identical shades, including a universal pink shade, making it redundant for me to own both of these. Those similar matte shades ultimately look the same once they're on the eye. In fact, today I'm wearing one palette on one eye and one on the other. Could you tell? In fact, if you feel like it, you can guess which palette's on eye number 1 and which one is on eye number 2, and the winner gets a pat on the back. So basically, the mattes that are similar look identical once they're applied on the eye, but those champagne shades differ in finish, with the Charlotte Tilbury having a pearly satin finish and the Lancome version having a fine, sparkly metallic finish. But I found that with the right primer, in my case, Pat McGrath's Intensifeyes Artistry wand, I was able to amplify the impact of Charlotte's champagne shade to make it almost equally metallic. The only thing I couldn't emulate was the fine sparkles of the Lancome shade. But realistically, only true connoisseurs of makeup would notice the difference. So practically speaking, I was able to get them looking virtually identical as well. For anyone who guessed that I was wearing the Charlotte Tilbury quad on this eye, you are wrong. But that's okay, because even the absolutely makeup-obsessed people who happen to follow me on Instagram also couldn't seem to really tell the difference when I was posting about this in my stories, so we're all in good company. As similar as the common colors are between these two palettes, the remaining shades are pretty different. Charlotte's quad includes a coppery topper shade, while the Lancome Nude Sculptural Quint has 2 darker matte browns. So the Pillow Talk palette stays in that light to mid-toned range, which is really safe for everyday looks, while the Nude Sculptural palette chooses to offer varying depths, which means it moves very well from day to night. So if I want that iconic Pillow Talk look, but I want to make it smoky, then I would actually grab for the Lancome Nude Sculptural palette, because I feel like it gives me the same kind of color options as Pillow Talk, but with more variation in tone. This darkest shade here is even dark enough for me to use as a liner. So for me, this palette is almost like Pillow Talk on steroids. And when it comes to versatility, once again, the Lancome palette wins the point. When it comes to the formulas, I'm a huge fan of the Charlotte Tilbury matte shadows that I've tried, because they blend out so softly and so easily. And especially when you have colors like this, I feel like that makes a very easy, everyday, effortless look, which, to be honest, is also a downside for me sometimes, but for a weird reason. Makeup is my moment of zen, and doing my eyeshadow is my favorite part. So when it's over too quickly, sometimes it disappoints me a little bit. But I'm not going to detract points for that, because that's actually a great sign of the quality of the formula. I've really enjoyed using this satin shade as well. This champagne color has such a soft focus, lit from within kind of sheen that's just very gentle, and it's so nice for textured eyelids. It's beautiful. The only real disadvantage I can see to any of these shadows isn't really a disadvantage, it's just kind of a characteristic of the shadows, and that's that they're only buildable to an extent. The pigmentation is only going to take you so far. So that means drama isn't really possible with these shades, at least not on my skin tone. The one shade I'm not crazy about in here is the pop shade, so the copper topper shade. And it's not objectively horrible, I just feel like it pales in comparison to the quality of the other 3 shades, so I just very rarely use it. Which is funny, because this is the only shade in this palette that got hard pan, even though it was used the least. I mean, I got rid of it, but it's just weird how that happens. The longevity of the Charlotte Tilbury shadows is what I would consider normal. When I use them together with a primer, then I get 8 hours of wear with no creasing and just minimal fading. I do have to use a glitter glue with the pop shade, but that's normal for my very oily hooded eyelids, and so all in all, I consider this a success longevity-wise. Now let's talk about the Lancome formulas, starting with the mattes. The formulas are just a little bit different. I feel like the lighter shades don't have quite as much pigmentation, so it takes a little bit more to build them up. And if you don't realize that and you start with the light shades and then you go to the dark shades expecting that lack of pigmentation, you're a little bit shocked because you automatically overdo the darker shades. But once I had the knack of that and I realized that the darker shades are much more pigmented than the lighter ones, then it was fine. But as I was building them up, I began to notice how special they were because I saw that they have a blurring quality on the skin. And if there's something that I love in a good matte, it is a blurring quality. So that really impressed me about this. When it comes to the one metallic shade in the Nude Sculptural palette, it is very thin, but very buildable, which is great because it means I can take it from a sheer wash of shine on the lid to something more intense very easily. And the shine has a little bit of pieciness to it. It's nothing as extreme as a Pat McGrath special shade or an indie shadow, but for a typical kind of legacy brand metallic, it does add an element of specialness. So when it comes to formula, which of these two palettes wins? That is a hard question to answer because each formula is so different and has its pros and cons. The Lancome palette gets a point for the blurring quality, a point for longevity, and a point for the versatility of that metallic shade. But the Charlotte Tilbury formula gets a point for the blendability of those mattes, a point for the effortless application overall, and a point for that soft focus finish of that satin shade. So when it comes to formula, I feel like these palettes are pretty much tied because the quality of both of them is great, just different. But all in all, the Lancome palette did get more points. It had more bang for the buck, at least for my preferences, and a more versatile color story. Plus, it's got the great formula. That makes the Lancome Nude Sculptural palette the clear winner for me, especially because I can get so much use out of all 5 shades in here. Whereas when it comes to the Charlotte Tilbury palette, I'm just not a fan of that pop shade. That's a whole quarter of the palette that's just kind of not really useful to me. Then there's the issue of versatility. I think the Pillow Talk color story is beautiful, but it always gives me the same subtle no makeup look. This here is the most drama I can possibly get out of this palette on its own because of the color story. And to be honest, it's not all that pillow talky to me because when I think of what the phrase pillow talk actually means, I think of something else. I think of sultry makeup. I think of eyeshadow that looks like it's been lived in or slept in. So as pretty and natural as the Pillow Talk quad is, I just feel like it's not very pillow talk. The Nude Sculptural palette, on the other hand, can give me that same exact fresh-faced look, but I can also take that look from day to night. I can smoke it up and smudge it out. And that, to me, is much more pillow talk. So as shocked as I am to say this, I think Lancome is more pillow talk than Charlotte Tilbury. And as beautiful and high quality as I think both of these palettes are, I'm going to be giving away my Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk quad. Are you as shocked as I am? Or did you see this coming? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you who made it this far, leave me a pink emoji so I can celebrate. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. But even if you don't, I hope you have a great week and that we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.